what I realized you have to understand about the beliefs that you have, this will rule your life because literally everything is a belief. Think of it as we're almost like a blank canvas, that anything is possible. But we were imprinted with our beliefs and our customs and behaviors. As a child, up until the age of 7, you're imprinted like an open book from your parents' family environment. And you have this set of beliefs, whether it be relationships are hard or they're painful, you need to really work hard at your relationship, or money doesn't grow on trees, wealthy people are greedy, blah, blah, blah. So if you have all those beliefs, then you need to realize, A, they're beliefs, they're not the entire truth.
Welcome on the Me&My Health Up podcast. How are you, Michelle Chung?
Hello, I'm really good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to have you on. I really look forward to this conversation, particularly it's this time of the year where we're wrapping up a year and about to begin a new year. So it's lots of people thinking about that change, that what am I going to do, what do I want to achieve in 2026. So I'd love to get your insights on that change process, that really how to really get started and to make sure that, or to help the listeners really achieve their goals in 2026. So before we dive into the topic, I'd love you to bring the listeners up to speed with how you have arrived at what you're doing today.
Yeah, what a question. I guess it's a bit of there's been lots of pivots, right? I think we go through that in our life, especially if you're in, midlife and you're moving towards your later in the century. But the pivot, it's a cleanse, it's like a refresh, and it's a real opportunity. And I guess my first major pivot was in my early 30s. I actually had a health issue, and we were thinking about talking about that as well, but it all actually weaves in very nicely. I had a health issue where I injured a couple of discs in my lower back, and I couldn't walk for a year. I had chronic sciatic pain, and that led me to my first pivot where I was like, why me? I'm in the prime of my life. I should be having a family with my husband. And it made me really reflect and realize this is happening for me, not to me, so I can take it either way. And I decided to take it in the positive light and decided to switch over, change my life. I did get a divorce and I was single for a couple of years and was looking for my soulmate, searching all over the world, traveling and doing lots of fun stuff, but wasn't finding him. And it wasn't until I moved towards my personal growth journey, became a life coach, that actually manifested my partner. And all this while I was living in Spain. So quite a life. I'm pretty happy with my life so far. And that's where I am now, like helping women find their soulmates without dating, and also to help women to pivot and become the better, the highest version of themselves. And that's what I do.
Nice. Well, there's plenty of women listeners on the Me&My Health Up podcast. So you're talking to your people. I'd love to find that light bulb moment as to, because obviously when that happens and your sort of dreams at the time, get a bit shattered in a sense. You think, wow, this is really life altering. And how did you see the light? How did that come about?
Literally, it was probably YouTube because, at that point when I was in chronic sciatic pain, all I could do was lie on my back. I couldn't really get up and mobile. I actually had to quit my full-time job. I was a designer. I'm in a homewares company. I loved that job and the company was amazing, but I was like, I'm taking too much time off work to go to chiro and kinesio sessions. So I was literally, on the floor, lying on my back. And what can you do? Like you're literally stopped in your tracks. So you can't do much except, maybe research how to get through this. And I'm a huge believer of healing yourself. I believe that the body is made for balance and homeostasis. And I ended up studying kinesiology and mind-body medicine to heal myself. And then I realized, this second, I guess, what is it like out midlife learning education is so important, because I think when you're at uni, when you're young, you just kind of do it to get it over with so you can go off and travel or work. But, choosing a new career focus at midlife was kind of like, okay, this is something I'm actually really passionate about. And it's for a purpose, which was healing myself. And I didn't see myself as a practitioner, so to speak, but I knew that this was my next step forward. So I guess it was like, researching how did other people heal themselves? What was available? I came upon a Gonstead chiropractor who was doing specific adjustments and, manifested a chiropractor in Sydney who was in the eastern suburbs where I was. And, it all came together, like not without a lot of pain and a lot of work and effort, but just keeping a really open mind and really just trying. I was like, hey, I can do this. I'm not going to shrivel up in a little ball and just give up on life. I just, I had a greater purpose in the world. And, not at that time, I didn't know that I was going to be coaching women and helping people find love. But at that time, it was like, because your health is such a debilitating, it completely grabs your attention and you have to do something. Otherwise you can't function. You can't work. You can't make money. You can't, have a relationship. At the time I was married, but my husband, ex-husband now, was so supportive. But it's really that you need to have it in yourself to want to make your life better. And I think that's just keeping an open mind.
Absolutely. It does take an open mind to, find alternate solutions to what was on offer. Obviously, you could have gone down all sorts of surgical and
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the chiro in the eastern suburbs, let's shout out, let's give them a shout out. So
Yeah, Dr. Phil, Phil Toke in Eastern Suburbs Chiropractic. Yeah, he's amazing. We've become
nice,
really good friends, actually. We always go out to eat lunch. That's awesome.
nice. And was he posting particular things related to what you're looking for? Obviously, is that what is the discovery came? Is that how it came about?
So actually, when I was lying on the floor and I was scrolling YouTube or just Googling everything to heal my condition, it was another doctor in Melbourne. But at this point in time, I couldn't even leave the house to get on a plane. So I had to find somebody, Gonstead chiropractor, who was, in proximity. Actually, I was living in the city in Chippendale, but I grew up in the East. And he was actually a friend or an ex-boyfriend of a friend. So then it was kind of like, all my friends knew that I had this condition. They were trying to help me. And every time I felt like really good and I could actually walk, I was like, oh, that's because I took massive painkillers. And that's why. So, I was just trying to figure out how to heal myself. But it was kind of, I guess, manifested because it was like just asking around or friends wanted to help me, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, I know somebody who actually does this. And up until that point I'd actually seen probably half a dozen practitioners. I'd seen a surgeon, I'd seen like so many different doctors and things like that, and tried so many different things. And I guess you just got to keep trying, and then you'll find the right practitioner who has the right kind of mindset or the alignment with where you are in your life.
Absolutely, that never say die or never give up sort of attitude.
Can't, no way, no.
There was so much more in life calling you.
100%. Yeah.
And so what's Gonstead Chiropractic? I haven't come across it.
Yeah, I guess it's a next level of chiropractic. They study an extra year at uni, and they have a different kind of system of adjustments of that's mostly what I'm hearing. They have a particular way of adjusting. They can also use kinesiology, which is what I was interested in. And that's using muscle testing to understand if there's an emotional trigger or if there's any other systems of the body that need attention and balancing. But my friend Phil, he was doing the Gonstead, and then he took x-rays, and I guess he came at it from a different point of view from other practitioners. I guess that's why you try different practitioners, because everyone's got a different perspective of how they can approach a different case.
Yeah, so it was, I guess the Gonstead chiropractic is more in the energy side of things. Is it?
Not necessarily.
No,
They
okay.
can do, but they do a different method of adjustment. So a chiro will do a certain way, and they've got like a different level of skill, let's say.
Okay. Now you mentioned the kinesiology, and obviously you went on to study that.
Yes.
What was the awakening there in terms of when yeah.
Well, massive. Yeah, massive. I studied at the College of Complementary Medicine here in Sydney. It's just at Central Station. And it was an eye-opener because at that point, I didn't understand energy. I didn't understand healing. I didn't know about any of this stuff. I was open to it. Like, I remember when I was a kid, Mum had this thick book about how to do home remedies of like cleaning solutions and like crafty stuff or things like that. So I kind of already knew that I always wanted to be more natural, more health aligned, and not use chemicals or pharmaceuticals and medicines and things like that if not needed. And so that's what drew me to this particular course, because it was about using the body systems, using the muscle testing, understanding how the body works, the different meridians. We learned about Ayurveda, we learned about TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. So this really fit where I was in my life, where I was like, there's this whole new world of Eastern philosophy that's, helpful, that can be used in conjunction with allopathic, which is Western medicine. And I thought, wow, this is something I really believe in. And it really resonated really well. And from that, a massive, I guess, wake up call I got from that was actually the divorce of my marriage. I know it doesn't sound so good, but I was studying, I was training with a classmate, and we were doing practices on each other, and we did a balance, an energy balance, and a lot of it like is emotional shifting as well, and rebalancing systems in the body. And I distinctly, in my mind's eye, I could see different colors like red and green, which relate to heart and base chakra. And I woke up from your practice table, and I said very clearly, I can't be in this marriage anymore. And it was complete shock, because up until that point there was nothing wrong with my marriage, though I'd never even thought about getting a divorce. It was just not on the cards. This was the guy I'm meant to be with forever. And from that session, something opened up where it made me realize I had a greater purpose. There was something more out there for me, and I was meant to be doing something different with my life. So that was a huge awakening and a huge wake up call there.
Wow. It really, brought it to your conscious awareness, didn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
It does.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then your journey from there, obviously, you're studying complementary medicine, you're learning about all the alternate ways of healing. You really embraced kinesiology at the time. You're doing a bit of chiropractic work as well. What led you into life coaching?
So that was another pivot. So from healing myself with my kinesiology journey and with Phil and doing the Gonstead, after my divorce, then I was single again, and I was like, well, I've never dated before. I don't know how to do this. Like, I've met, my partners, as you do when you're growing up. You meet them in the workplace, you meet them at sport or like at uni, and then you kind of, just life just happens, and things just go on. You never really had to actually plan to be in a relationship. And so from that, I was like doing a lot of reflection and going, okay, how do I do this dating thing? How do I meet somebody? Because I still want to have a family. And, I was on all the dating apps. I even paid for expensive dating apps thinking, oh, it's going to be better quality people on there because they're paying money, they're serious. And nothing was quite the right, like, I know a lot of them will say this, like you'll meet somebody and they're like 90% what you want, but then there's just something that's misaligned, and then you just go, no, I can't do that. And especially as you get older, you're more, I guess, set in your ways, and you're more like, I don't know if I can compromise my life just for this other person because my life is already pretty good. So I was going through this point where I was like, how do I do this dating thing? And I thought it's just like a sales. It's just like, you just got to keep getting out there, and it's a numbers game. And the more people that you date, the more, like, at least one of them's got to be the one, right? That was my theory. And that's what actually a lot of dating coaches out there have advocated in the past. And what I realized was, you just exhaust yourself and you get more confused. There's that theory of, if you have 50 flavors of ice cream instead of just 3 flavors, like, you have analysis paralysis. And that's what it was like. There was like too much choice now. There was like, a different guy on every second that you swiped across on an app. And then, there could be like, other potential people out there when you go out. And so it just became almost paralyzing, that you'd almost be like hunting and searching every moment you're out. And then, it becomes like a second job. And I've heard even some dating coaches say, treat dating like it's your second job. And I was like, oh my gosh, all this advice is terrible. And it didn't work for me. And then I started to come back to my personal growth journey. And I'd started that in, I don't even know, 2008, let's say. I'd started with landmark education because a business mentor was, really like, recommending it and really, inviting me to come to their sessions and things. And I was like, yeah, but how does personal growth fix your problems? Like, really? And at that point, I was very unconscious, and I didn't know what I know now, obviously. And so I realized, this is the key. It's not about what's out there, because I can't change what's out there. I can't change what guys appear on my app or what guys turn up at the places that I'm at. I can't really control that. What I can control is what's happening internally, and that's the feminine journey, that's the internal journey, that's the inner growth and personal work. And so I started to come back to that, and at that point in time I had moved to Spain. I'd listened to my intuition. It told me to move to Barcelona. I'd been traveling all around the world prior to that, and it was a COVID business. I'd taken my life coaching training online with the John Maxwell team, and they're amazing. And I just realized, this is the solution to pretty much all our issues. If we can learn to coach ourselves to understand how to bring out our zone of genius within ourselves, we've got all the answers already. So this I thought, like kinesiology, the life coaching, I feel like these are the life hacks, basically.
Wow. And what was the most profound thing that you found when you were studying life coaching? Like, what was the thing that really stood out or really clicked for you?
I'd say two things: reflection and silence. The reflection part I wasn't very good at because I'm ambitious. I'm kind of an A-type alpha person, and I'm always doing stuff. So I'm always on the go, and cortisol and adrenaline, it's running through my body, right? So I was very good at doing stuff and taking action, but I wasn't very good at pausing, reflecting that silence, and actually looking at what has actually worked, what I need to do less of, what I need to get rid of, because I'm a very high energy person. So I could do it all, but it doesn't mean that I should, right? So that reflection, made me really realize this is the gold. And I've had lots of my coaching clients, when I make them watch back their recordings, that's where they get their gold. They're like, oh my gosh, now I see myself from your perspective, and I can hear what you were trying to say to me at that session, but I just couldn't hear it at that point. I'm like, yes, that's amazing. And that's where you get the gift. It's not from somebody telling you, do step 1, step 2, step 3. That's like what a teacher does in primary school, right? But when we can coach ourselves, when we can reflect and understand the patterns that we're doing over and over and go, oh gosh, that pattern doesn't work for me. I need to break that. And I can, because now I can see it. So that's been one of the major, game changers with life coaching. And definitely the silence. We're so used to waiting until the other person's finished saying what they're saying and then interjecting with our own thoughts. But when you actually have a completely empty mind, no agenda, and you're having a very organic conversation, breakthroughs happen as well. You're downloading stuff from the gods, your higher power, the universe. And it's what they call the hive mind, the mastermind, where you get 2 or more people together, and you're listening to each other, and you're able to bounce off each other instead of having your own agenda that you're trying to push. And I'm so guilty of that. I used to do it. I probably still do it now because my partner sometimes tells me off. But that silence and just being able to listen to somebody and just really absorb their energy, what they're saying, their tone of voice, everything.
And so this is huge in terms of thinking about the transition into next year, and people thinking, and if they've got a lot of noise, then they're more than likely to chase someone else's goal, right? They're going to think, oh,
Yes.
that looks glamorous. I'd love that. I'd love to do that. I'd love to be that person, and so that,
Yes.
but again, that's when, we're surrounded by noise and we're not listening to ourselves. And when I reflect back on one of your profound insights when you're doing the complementary medicine was when you were still, right? And
Yeah.
your
Yes.
intuition just popped. And that's known is that our intuition's the strongest when we're present, totally present.
Yes.
And that's what you
Yes.
describe as, that reflection, that stillness. And so how do you help your clients find this stillness, or to, go about this reflection? Because this is where people are at this time of the year. So how can you help them?
Yeah. It's a process. I've worked with some clients, and they really held on to certain, let's say, limiting beliefs. And session after session, they would come back with worry, fear. I'm not doing enough. I'm worried about XYZ. And what I realized, you have to understand about the beliefs that you have. This will rule your life, because literally everything is a belief. I even heard this from my own mentor, and I was like, wow, that's revolutionary. Because think of it as we're almost like a blank canvas, that anything is possible. But we were imprinted with our beliefs and our customs and behaviors as a child. This is a core psychological concept. Up until the age of 7, you're imprinted like an open book from your parents' family environment, and you have this set of beliefs, whether it be, relationships are hard or they're painful, you need to really work hard at your relationship, or money doesn't grow on trees, wealthy people are greedy, blah, blah, blah. So if you have all those beliefs, then you need to realize, A, they're beliefs, they're not the entire truth, because somewhere in the world, there's somebody who does the opposite and is doing it very well. And if you recognize that everything is a belief, then this gives you truly freedom, because then there's no right or wrong, or trying to search for the absolute truth. It's like everything is right and everything is wrong at the same time. It's like that crazy movie, everything is all at once, right? It's like that multiple parallel universes, multiple realities, whatever, quantum physics, right? And once you really get that, you can have a lot of freedom, because then you can choose whatever beliefs you want. The beliefs you have, if you're not getting the results that you want in your life right now, they're not serving you, or they have served you and you're plateaued and you're like, okay, cool. What's my next set of beliefs that's going to bring me into the next season of my life? So when you recognize that, you need to then say, what are the benefits of having these particular set of beliefs? And I've started making my clients write down a list of 30. So I, learned this with one of my colleague, a lady I'm going to start a new coaching program with next year. We're going to do it together. One of her things is like, write 30 benefits of those limiting beliefs. So things like, I get attention if I'm sick all the time. I get sympathy. People are always asking how I am. People are actually concerned for my health. So you stay sick because you don't want to give up that attention. It sounds twisted and weird and cruel, but and think if you can't think of it as a benefit, think of it as something that serves you in some way. And most of the time, it's really gross. It's really icky, and you just go, I'm not doing that. I'm a good person. I don't have those weird, payoffs like that, but you do, because that's why you hold on to them. So, being the victim, getting to save people, being above people, being able to get out of doing particular thing, protecting yourself. There's so many benefits once you can write your list and go, oh yeah, that's pretty gross. I don't know, I don't want to even tell anyone. I don't even want to admit it to myself. But this is the courage. You need to have that courage. And we talk about the line of courage to step out of your comfort zone, right? So once you can do that, then you need to rationalize it, because you need that level of rationalizing. You can't just take on a new belief like people do with affirmations and go, I am love and I am lovable. And inside you're like, I don't really believe this. And so you're trying to convince yourself with willpower, and it totally doesn't work. And then people are like, yeah, affirmations, they're amazing. It's like, no, they don't work, because they're too far a jump from your subconscious programming. And that's what I also do to help help clients with their subconscious program to reset that. So then you need to rationalize it to yourself and say, so why is this a lie? Why is having these benefits a lie? And you can say, well, because other people in life get by without these payoffs and they're doing great. So you need to kind of like go through that process to be able to shift your mind to a new set of beliefs. And then you can really create whatever you want. And that's what we're meant to be doing, to be constantly creating. That's what humans are meant to be doing. We're not meant to be stuck in, a 9-to-5 job, for your whole life. We're meant to be creating and discovering our purpose and aligning with our soul.
So, I mean, it's great. Like, I think it's really good that what you do with your clients is bring it to their conscious awareness. They've got to,
Yes.
write down these 30 things that are underlying that behavior or that limiting belief. And then they can see it and they think, wow, I do all that, and as you said, they find things in there and think, oh, I don't really like that.
Yeah. This is self-mastery. This is the epitome of the self-growth, right? When you don't need a coach because you can coach yourself. You can reflect, you can see where your patterns are that aren't serving you. You can undo them. You can reprogram your own subconscious. This is self-mastery. This is the mastery of the self. And the self is really what we're here to do. We can go to work, we can go to our job, we can serve a corporation, we can, work with our boss. These are all amazing things. But at the end of the day, as we are spiritual beings, this is actually our higher purpose, to move through earth in this lifetime, to be able to understand as a soul and as a spiritual creature, like, what is your mission? And that's one of the things that I love to do. And that's my purpose.
Well, that was my next question. So I think you picked that up because
I did. I read your mind.
yeah, it's like people are doing this reflective behaviour, realizing they've got these current some of these behaviours that aren't serving, and they want to make change of that. So my two questions were: you mentioned that line of courage. So, but I guess the bigger question is, how do they find what they're wanting to create that canvas, build that or I don't know, draw that canvas in for 2026, but they're thinking, well, what is my canvas for 2026? So how do you help your clients understand their direction, as opposed to copying someone else's goal or achievements or wanting to emulate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we try to jump ahead too far. We try to go for the 10-year, 20-year plan and go, okay, what is my life purpose from where I am now and where I'm going to be in 50 years? I believe it doesn't really happen like that. You need to go through in stages, and that's actually probably the most comfortable and funnest part. And you probably won't know your purpose or your goals until you start doing the small steps. Maybe it's fitness, and maybe it's just like, okay, I just need to get out the door and put on the running shoes and just go to the beach and then go there like consistently every day. And then maybe that marathon or the travel or living abroad or something like that might come as a consequence of taking those small steps. For example, like I never wanted to live abroad. Everyone used to go to UK in their 20s, right? And do that work exchange program. I never wanted to do that. And it wasn't until I got divorced and went, oh, there's this travel program. It was called Remote Year, and I was a digital nomad, and I took my design business abroad with me and traveled with like 45 other amazing remote workers. And it wasn't until I did that and got a taste for like, oh, I love traveling. I loved living in different countries. I loved like learning about cultures and speaking their language and eating their food, and I was like, oh, okay, so I've done that. What's my next step? I'm going to move to Spain because it doesn't feel like such a huge step. I've lived in 12 cities in 12 months. I've picked up different languages, not completely, but I've given it a go. And, that led me to the next step, which was to manifest my partner. And that's actually where I met Raf in Spain. And we would never have met if I hadn't gone traveling, if I hadn't had gotten a divorce, if I hadn't, hurt my back. So it all kind of unfolds. So you don't need to be too hard on yourself to go, I need to know that thing now in 2026. Just take those steps and listen to your intuition. That's where the silence is really great, because that those downloads come when your mind is not so busy, and then you start getting these insights of like, oh, I just got to go talk to that friend about this particular thing. Seems random, and I'm like, I really feel like doing that, and listening to those intuitive downloads, they are amazing, and they've given me so much. I really credit that for my life.
Wow. So that, because, prior to this point, you were, as you said, very that alpha chasing things and
Yep.
wanting to achieve things and accomplish things. And so, yeah, that big moment at the heart moment is, if I slow down a bit,
Yeah.
like, because as you were saying, like, do I, like, some of the things you're chasing, when you were doing the reflection, do I really want that?
Yeah. Yeah. That was like my, I've always been an entrepreneur, and I started in a footwear business. I sold that. Then I was like, okay, what's my next career move? And I did sit in silence. I thought about it for like a good couple of months, probably even years before I switched to life coaching. I still had, design clients that, I was working with, but I was like, do I work in construction and do more house renovating? Because like I'm into property as well. Do I, at one point I was like, I worked as a travel agent for 3 months, and I was like, I hated that. I cried, and then I quit and left. And, I was thinking maybe I'll do recruitment because I like people, and, maybe I'll be a real estate agent. And, you kind of just sit on those things. And what I was doing was really feeling if it, and this is actually one of my client brought this up. She's like, now I sit with it and I feel if my heart expands for it or not. I was like, oh, that is so good. I was probably doing some kind of version of that, but I think that's a really good one. Sit with it in silence and just kind of go, does life coaching feel like the right next move? And it may not be a direct, yes, do it, but it may come when you're gardening the next couple of days later, or like in the shower or going for a run. It does answer back, but it might be a little bit of a delay. And most of the time it's going to come when your head's silent. So, keep with that silence and you're going to be good.
Absolutely. Like, it's incredible because you came up with my next question before I actually asked you. So,
Again,
yeah, again, like I was,
we're
because
vibing.
yeah, absolutely. The thing that popped when you shared, been sharing this, you just take the next step, right? And Steve Jobs, famously quoted, follow your heart,
Mm,
and then he said, it's only when you look back in life you can join the dots together, right? And so,
yes.
yes, and that's very aligned to what you're sharing here. Is well, okay, and your client shared it well too, in terms of connect with your heart, and we can only connect with our heart when we slow down and
Yes.
we slow down from that busyness, which you're saying, is that reflection, stillness, and silence. And that heart, being electromagnetic, will either be pulled towards like a magnet. And this is like, as your client
That's
said,
good.
if my heart expands, well, that means she's getting pulled towards it, and that's the right thing, right? So,
That's really good. Yeah,
yeah, just
yeah.
love it. Love how
What a
it's
great
all.
analogy.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. So I love this. Take the next step, and as you've done, is that you've taken that step and then realized sometimes no, my heart's not really expanding here, and
Yeah,
hence,
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. So it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's it. Yeah, that's it. Because like you actually don't know if it's going to be the right next step for you until you actually do it, right? There's been lots of things where I've gone, man, why did I do that? And, but in the moment it felt right. And then you take it and then you go, oh, yeah, probably, or I'm over it. Like, you know how you kind of, I'm kind of one of those people who masters things as quick as possible. And then I get over it really quick and then I just move on to the next thing. Like I was Latin dancing for 5 years intensely. I was traveling around the world and I was going to classes in like Mexico and Latin America and Europe. And then now I'm like, I completely don't vibe with it anymore. I'm like, I don't need it. Like I've learned so many skills from it, like masculine, feminine communication, nonverbal cues. Like I've learned so much from it. But now I'm like, okay, what's next? I want to learn some. I think I'm just a massive learner. I just want to, keep being that student and learn more and more to expand as much as I can that I can, help serve more people. And that's why I studied a Psych K. So I could help people reprogram their subconscious, because sometimes just talking through like talk therapy isn't enough. There's got to be some kind of like body somatic integration as well. And so I'm like, okay, what's the next thing I can learn that's going to help, help my clients and help people? So I think that's massive. Just wanting to keep learning. And that's a thing, because in TCM, Chinese medicine, we want to not be stagnant. This stagnation equals death, basically. If you're too still, we want to be still, we want to be, quiet. But stagnation is different in that sense that you're paralyzed and you're stuck. And we don't want to do that. That's not healthy for our bodies. That's not healthy for us as humans. That's not what we're meant to be doing.
And you very much had that point in your life where you were stagnant, and you were
Literally stuck in my tracks. I
paralyzed.
was
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And that was a massive wake up call, because it's like, now I know this, that I'm actually literally stuck in my body. What am I going to do about it? I can cry and be the victim and go, poor me, and have people come visit my house so I can get attention. But I'm like, no, I've got stuff to do. Like I want to be out there. I want to do cool stuff.
Amazing. I'm just thinking those listeners out there that might be a bit stuck at this time of the year, thinking, oh, I don't want 2025 to be, or 2026 to be a replay of 2025. I want this change. I
Yeah.
want to embrace it, but
Yep.
I just not sure what that step is going to be. So how can the listeners best connect with you?
Yeah. One last thing. I've had friends talk about 2025, Year of the Snake. That's a Chinese calendar. It's about shedding. I don't know too much about this, but when I heard it, I was like, oh, that sounds so right. And next year, apparently, is Year of the Horse. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I'm guessing that it's about speed. It's about moving forwards. So I think it's absolutely perfect and a great place, to be right now, where you're thinking about making a pivot. You're thinking about moving and changing your life in some way. On my website, I have a free masterclass if you're interested in meeting a soulmate without dating. That's teaching you about how to follow your soul purpose as opposed to your life purpose, and attracting your soulmate by being on your path. I also have some online programs you can do that to manifest love. I teach you the 3 steps to release, rewrite, and receive, and be in your feminine energy so you can actually receive your partner in your life. And I've got my podcast as well, which you've been a guest, my honorable guest, and also on Instagram and YouTube. So many different ways you can check out my content. And if you'd like to work with me, then there's a way you can check that out on my website as well.
And as always, listeners, I'll put all those links that Michelle mentioned in the show notes, so you can go directly to the show notes and click on the most appropriate link for you. So I just wanted to thank you, Michelle, for coming on the Health Up podcast, sharing your wisdom and enlightening the listeners today on how to move forward.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And listeners, if you've loved this episode, please share it with others that could really benefit, that might be stuck, might be paralyzed, that want to move forward. So please share it far and wide so we can help as many people as possible. And until next time, continue to health up. Podcast disclaimer. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare, or professional advice and are provided for general information purposes only. All care is taken in the preparation of the information in this podcast. Connected Wellness Proprietary Limited, operating under the brand Me&My Health Up, does not make any representations or give any warranties about its accuracy, reliability, completeness, or suitability for any particular purpose. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it are not to be used as a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, psychiatric, or any other mental health care or healthcare in general. Me&My Health Up recommends you seek the advice of a doctor or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Inform your doctor of any changes that you may to your lifestyle and discuss these with your doctor. Do not disregard medical advice or delay visiting a medical professional because of something you hear in this podcast. This podcast has been carefully prepared on the basis of current information. Changes in circumstances after publication may affect the accuracy of this information. To the maximum extent permitted by the law, Me&My Health Up disclaims any such representations or warranties to the completeness, accuracy, merchantability, or fitness for purpose of this podcast and will not be liable for any expenses, losses, damages incurred, indirect or consequential damages or costs that may be incurred as a result of the information being inaccurate or incomplete in any way and for any reason. No part of this podcast can be reproduced, redistributed, published, copied, or duplicated in a form without prior permission of Me&My Health Up.